back.
Hi.
I'm Eric Anthony. You could say your name this time because I get it wrong all the time.
I'm Dave
There you go. Okay, I'm going to copy. I'm going to say it with an English accent next time.
I'm never going to say it again.
Everybody who's tuning in on via Twitch, if you're watching this on YouTube or listening on Spotify, Apple, whichever podcast providers you enjoy, rate and review our show. Press that subscribe button as we begin. It's always helpful when you guys engage with us because we do make. I think we make a good show. Me and Dave make a good team.
We're biased.
More comic fans need to see it, right? Yeah, more fans need to see it. And if you want more people to be like, yo, you should watch this show, subscribe, rate and review. Give us some feedback.
And if you're watching late and you fall asleep, don't worry. The replay will be on YouTube. That's not fall asleep out of boredom, obviously. That's just from needing to go sleepy bobos. No, everybody.
and of course, for all of the rest of your Omniverse Comics Guide needs, you just check out the website, omniversecomics.guide. It's got your reading orders, podcasts, videos, everything that you love about comics will be there. And it's just growing all the time. So just keep checking in on us because Dave and super producer Misha are always adding to the website. Looking good, looking great. But this, my friend, is the podcast.
Yeah, the podcast.
Are you ready? The podcast. Doing another top 10, but this time creator-centric. I like these ones. Last time we did Mark Waid, who, of course, is a fan favorite. I would say, for the most part, everyone that has a Mark Waid story they love. And I think today's creator, this time an artist, John Romita Jr.
Jr.
Junior. Yeah. Safe to say, a legitimate legend. That term gets thrown around a lot, right?
And the son of another legitimate legend. So
very, very difficult shoes to fill. And then I would say in some ways, arguably surpassed the legacy of his dad. Like he's carved out a spot for himself, not on the strength of, well, that's his son.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So kudos to him. So we're going to do a little John Romita Jr. celebration and some of the stories we love that we hope you might enjoy. I think you go first this week.
Okay.
You lucky bastard. Because we're going to be stealing ones from each other, so you're going to always have the chance to steal.
I'm going to steal all 5 of yours this time.
Well, you've definitely read a lot more because you're the Marvel guy between us.
I guess, but also I think so if we go into my first, funnily enough, John Romita Jr. was it's not when I first saw him because I saw some of the X-Men issues he was doing, but when I started buying single issues back in the late 80s, because I'm old, he was on Daredevil. So so his Daredevil run with Anna Senti is still one of those books that they haven't collected in omnibus format, and one that people are clamoring for because on the Instagram account, like every time I post anything to do with that run, people go like, "Why isn't this an omnibus?" Like, because Marvel the bellends. So now I'm not going to go for the obvious Typhoid Mary story. Well, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I'm just not going to choose it. So I actually started reading that run just after Typhoid Mary was introduced. And I was kind of unsure about it, but it looked really, like, the covers look really cool and dark. And there was one cover where he's it's just him staring at you quite close up, holding a noose. I'm like, this just looks like, I don't know what Daredevil's about, but I want to get into it. So for my number one, for my turn this time around, I am choosing Daredevil number 270. That's specific, isn't it? Not going for the whole run. I just want to highlight that one issue. It's a great issue. It introduces Blackheart, who's the son of Mephisto. He is basic. Well, it's weird because I think also John Romita Jr. was the first one to draw Mephisto in that weird, long-faced, fat belly, spiky head thing. You know, because he was always like he always had a cape and the kind of
right
saggy legs. Or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And
he made him more beast-like.
Flappy bit over his balls. Yeah, and he made him like this weird, sort of more like a demon, like a classic kind of demon.
Right.
Sometimes it's just a big fat round thing eating souls, and sometimes he's a skinny thing, but he's always got that weird long face.
Right.
He does look like that in this issue, but it's weird because I mean, like it's so differently set up. It's largely splash pages and finishes on splash page, so it's all very atmospheric, and it's almost like a horror story in the middle of this otherwise like a nomadic, not quite crime fighting, but like Daredevil just gets involved in stuff that's kind of none of his business because he leaves New York, and he runs into this demon thing, and he also goes up against it with Spider-Man.
That's always fun.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's the first. It's not the first time Romita Jr. drew Spider-Man outside of Amazing Spider-Man. I think he drew him in Uncanny X-Men first. But it's just such a great issue. Like, there's a bit where Daredevil is, for some reason, he's in a fun fair, and he's just like running along the tracks of a roller coaster, and it's kind of ridiculous. But like, you open that splash page, and he's doing this kind of upside down flippy thing, and it's like it's completely unnecessary, but it just looks really cool. And then Blackheart is basically like a completely dark version of Mephisto, so he's pretty much all black. I think a lot of people knew him from a game in the 90s.
Okay, what game was that?
I don't. Was it a Capcom game Blackheart was in? If anyone remembers what game that was, please put it in the comments. Yeah, he was. He wasn't a game, but yeah, he was, because I think he was also the main villain in the Ghost Rider film with Nick Cage.
Okay, I never watched those.
Don't. It's bad.
I won't. Yeah, it's the one thing I've avoided, and even when it's on TV, I don't find myself like, nah, it's on, let me watch it. No.
It's got the classic thing Nick Cage always does, which is just point at the camera. Every film he's in, and all but point.
Yeah.
I can't do
what was
Nick Cage.
What was the last Nicolas Cage movie that you enjoyed? Now I just see him. It just seems like he's making any and everything he possibly can.
He is, isn't he?
I did like National Treasure when it came out. I will say that. That was fun.
I didn't watch that.
Yeah, that was just like that old Indiana Jones map treasure hunter sort of feel. So for a guy who's gonna play Superman, imagine if he played Superman.
Just weird,
right?
It's too weird.
Yeah.
No.
Anyways, Blackheart, Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
Keep
So
going.
anyway, the problem. So this is just one issue. It introduces Blackheart. Spider-Man and Daredevil go up against him, and it's quite a bombastic issue with the two of them fighting. Romita Jr. I think does the best Daredevil for me. So you get possibly one of the greatest, at least one of my favorite Spider-Man artists and my favorite Daredevil artists together fighting some demon who just shoots black weirdness all around the place near a roller coaster. It's great. It's explosive, strange, sort of dark and sinister. It's a weird sort of pseudo nasty little story, and I really love it. But it's part of a great run.
Yeah, good pick. That's I think important to mention. We kind of jumped into this assuming every single person who might listen to this will know who. Go ahead. I see it.
Sorry. Our new listener, Demon Slayer, has just commented the Blackheart appears as a playable character in Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter, and Marvel vs. Capcom 2 New Age of Heroes. There is a full answer. Thank you for joining in.
Thank you. All right. That's part of the show forever now. Yeah, it's important to, I think, to distinguish the fact, like we said, John Romita Jr., was a legend. His father was a famous artist. His father was famous for being like one of those founding fathers of comics in a lot of ways, right? John Romita Jr. is closing in on 70, which is crazy to think about.
God, he's
right?
Not.
In my
is
head,
he really?
Yeah, he really is. He's closing in on 70. He's maybe 3 years away. 67. He's 67, 68 years old. But he's still that guy who, like you, the reason I bring this up is because you made a good point when you talked about Daredevil and Spider-Man, how he's one of your favorite Daredevil artists, one of your favorite Spider-Man artists. He kind of holds that distinction within the Marvel universe that he's drawn just about everybody.
Oh, yeah.
And he's always one of the best artists who's worked on that character. He always finds a way to put his stamp on it and make it memorable, which I think is important to know as we list some of these stories off, is this is a guy who's throughout from the 70s till now has drawn just about everybody.
His
and has put his signature on it, right?
Yeah, oh, definitely. And his dad is still like 93 and still going. So,
Incredible,
and also like,
incredible.
I mean, especially me growing up, if you bought a lunchbox or the little transfers, Spider-Man transfers or stickers or anything, the art used on that was more than likely John Romita Sr. So his Spider-Man
Yeah,
is it defined several generations, but John Romita Jr.
definitely.
made his stamp for sure, and did on
Yeah,
a number of characters, like you say.
it's very important to acknowledge that. I mean, we're going to go through it, but even before we begin, because I'm gonna pick. Can we move on to my number
You
one?
go for it.
I'm gonna stick to Daredevil. And this is what I thought I was gonna steal from you. I never read the Innocenti run
Okay.
at all, but I know it's it's my omnibus. Yes, it
You were going
is.
to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, Frank Miller,
Yeah.
the man without fear. It has to be mentioned,
Oh God,
right?
yeah.
It's this is a great book, by the way, for anyone. When you get an opportunity to buy this omnibus, don't put it off because it collects the. There you go. Yeah, cheers.
Cheers.
It collects Born Again as well as The Man Without Fear in a nice hardcover. Two absolutely wonderful Daredevil stories. But this is essentially, yeah, this is peak Romita, I think. Peak John Romita Jr. This is essentially a Daredevil origin, much like what you may, if you've watched the Daredevil television show, there's a lot of that show that is directly, as far as like the texture and the tone of that show comes from this book.
Yeah.
Even just the suit of Matt Murdock. He wears the tracksuit in this
Yes,
the whole
that's
time.
right.
You
That was a
you don't
direct
see him.
inspiration. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's Elektra's involved. So a lot of what you see throughout that series, this book is where the seeds were planted for it. I should show some artwork of it. This is an Elektra scene. Can you see that? Is that clear?
Yeah. Not with my eyes, but yeah.
And we've mentioned this before, but I don't think anybody draws weather quite as like you can feel it.
Yeah,
You almost
especially
want to grab an
storms.
umbrella.
Probably
Yeah.
from drawing Storm for years.
Probably, but he. So yeah, this is a splash page, iconic end to the book. You see that there,
Big spoiler.
everybody?
It's not a big spoiler. Yeah, he becomes Daredevil.
Yeah, but I mean, classic image.
I can't remember
And
if that was due to be like a pilot for a TV series.
it sounds you know what? I remember the Incredible Hulk television show
Yeah, oh my God.
with Thor and Daredevil making
Yes,
an appearance, and Daredevil wore the black tracksuit.
he did.
It might have been from there first, where
Possibly.
that was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the point.
could have been, and then maybe they incorporated that sort of homage, whatever it could be, putting it into comics. But it makes sense.
Yeah,
It kind of makes
it
sense
does make
that a
sense.
blind guy would just put a black tracksuit on.
And fight
Little
crime.
nice.
But he's it's nice though as well because like it's quite like compared to some of the other stuff which can be quite bombastic. It's quite a it's quite a sensitive story at sometimes, which seems weird for Frank
Yeah.
Miller, I think. As people, for the stuff people remember him for, but he can do that on occasion.
Yeah, this.
But yeah, it's got some quite nice moments and character building moments. So the pacing's really nice, and a lot of that does come down to John Romita Jr.'s pacing and storytelling.
Yeah, and you think too, like for somebody like Frank Miller to be so iconic artistically, as well as what he wrote, but artistically, like his Daredevil changed the game.
Yeah,
For someone like Romita to come on while Frank Miller's writing it and almost be like, this is peak Daredevil art with the guy who did the peak Daredevil stuff up to that point. It says a lot about his storytelling ability. Like you're never lost with John Romita's panels.
no, he's canny. He knows what he's doing. He's been doing it for a long time, and he's exceptional at it. Incidentally, one question that comes up quite a lot whenever Man with That Fear gets mentioned is if it's in continuity, and it's not. But when I
Okay.
first read it, I thought it was. So if you don't go back and look at those older stories, it works. So it doesn't matter if like did it happen, because like what I always say about did it happen. No, it's fiction.
Yeah, I feel like this is sort of the kind of the way they let Daredevil do his Batman beginning and end stories. They kind of let him do that with Daredevil,
Yeah,
Frank Miller,
and I
right? So
think it
this
was
is
going to
kind of
be
the origin. Go ahead.
what was a graphic novel style thing at the time, which was like a 64-page original story,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
they expanded it to 5 issues just because they had so much more to tell. So, but yeah, it's not actually how he meets the Kingpin, because he meets the Kingpin much later. But it
right.
works as just a standalone story. It's really good. So if you're trying to get someone just into comics, even not necessarily
Yes,
superhero stuff, because
yes,
he's not really in costume for this. Just the same way that the Netflix series got people watching that, and they were going like, "This doesn't feel like a superhero thing," it's because it kind of isn't. It's a vigilante
exactly,
story.
exactly. Yeah, that's a good thing to bring up too. Is this is a great starting point. If you've never read comics before, you don't have to go into this feeling like, but I don't know all 30 years of Daredevil up to this point. You don't need to.
You don't need to, not at all.
And you don't even have to read Daredevil after that if you don't want to, but most likely you'll want to because it's that good. That's the point. Try this out because this is an easy place to start, and you're gonna get two creators at the peak of their powers. Like this is a moment for both of them that they were just like firing at all cylinders.
Hmm.
So, Daredevil, did I steal that from
Yeah,
you? Is
you
that on the list?
totally stole it from me. Yeah,
Okay.
I risked it at like my number 5. Like it's gonna
I
go
said
before that.
if he doesn't pick it first, I'm picking it first.
Yeah, do it. I
All
should have
right.
picked it first. Anyway, I'm good. I'm glad though, because I don't want to do too many Daredevil. 'Cause I could easily just fill it with Daredevil.
I could just do Spider-Man,
Okay.
right?
So I'm going to choose neither of those characters now, but this is actually the logical follow-on from my previous
Okay.
choice, which
Okay.
is Ghost Rider, Wolverine, Punisher, Hearts of Darkness. So it's was it double-sized? It's a lengthy kind of what was at the time bookshelf format. So it's when they would release a really thick comic, but they'd release it with a spine
Right. Right.
in the 90s.
Like a Baxter
Yeah,
stock.
or
Would they call it
square
something like
bound.
that? Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but now they just release it as
They'll
an
staple
original
it.
graphic
Yeah.
novel. But
Yeah.
but yeah, so it had a fold out cover with the three of them fighting loads of demons across the front.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm desperately trying to get hold of that art without all the copy on it because I just love that piece.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's basically the follow up. So of course, inevitably, the son of the devil is inevitably going to try and become the next devil.
Right.
It's what happens in all those stories, right? Right? You know what I
Surprise.
mean? So yeah, Blackheart is basically after Mephisto's throne, and Ghost Rider, Wolverine, and the Punisher is like the three biggest, baddest super types. Super types. Punisher's not a super type. He's a dude with a gun and a big skull on his tummy.
They're all kind of vigilante anti-hero,
Yeah.
right?
So
Wolverine is more maybe the superhero from time to time, but he's kind of a Punisher like
that's
character
just it.
too.
He often didn't even wear a costume in his own series for like the first 10
Yeah, yeah,
He's just had
yeah.
like some tights over his eyes. Or something. What was that about? Did you ever see that? The early John
I,
Buscema issues of Wolverine, where he had a vest top, and then he had something over his eyes. Like,
I'll take a look.
it's weird. And then what was it they had? Oh yeah, and then the rest of the time he just wore a patch as a disguise.
That's right.
Because it's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
like his hair was distinctive. And he was the
I
only
know, right?
Canadian in Madripoor.
I don't see it. I don't see the mask.
It's
Keep
weird.
telling
It's
me
on
though.
issue one. It's on issue one's
Issue
cover,
one.
yeah. So
Oh, okay.
anyway, it's a done in one story essentially. There is a sequel, which is Ghost Rider Wolverine Punisher Dark Design, which is drawn by Ron Garney. So we're not mentioning that today. But yeah, it's a fairly lengthy story. It's collected, funnily enough, in a Wolverine Volume 3 omnibus, which is here. It's also been collected as a trade paperback, which I think has both of those books, Dark Design and Hearts of Darkness, which kind of tell a complete story. But I mean, if you don't read Dark Design, you'll never know any different. You can just read Hearts of Darkness on its own, but it's quite a big deal for the status quo in Mephisto's hell.
Who wrote it? That book?
Howard Mackie.
Oh, interesting.
So Howard Mackie was like, I think
He was known for reinvigorating Ghost Rider,
Totally,
right?
yeah. He completely reinvigorated Ghost Rider. He jumped on Spider-Man later on as well, and he was
Yep.
like, I think his run was arguably the best from that period for me. At a certain point, between 2 points, then he ended up doing the John Byrne relaunch of Spider-Man, and then he just sort of
Oh,
disappeared because I think it kind of didn't help his career because that was a terrible. That's probably the worst period of Spider-Man.
I've always been tempted to give it a try.
Just
It's
don't.
the one blind spot of Spider-Man that I haven't. I pick it up at when Straczynski gets on, but there's all of those issues in between where I'm just like, I kind of want to read it
It's so
because it's
bad.
yeah, right.
It's like
Okay.
it's so bad. I had to I had to read them all again for covering all the crossovers and just seeing what the order was and everything. And
Really
it's
that
like,
bad?
oh,
Because
this
it
is
was like
just it's the
Romita Jr. was on
worst.
the art too.
Yeah, so he was drawing one title and Burma's drawing the other, but I think Burma's guiding it all because it was just Peter Parker Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man, and it was honestly, it's so bad. Like one big storyline is Aunt May gets a haircut. It's like it's that level of bad, and Peter just keeps making really ridiculous decisions, so he remains hard luck Parker. And you go like, that's not hard luck. That's you being a dick. Like just
Yeah,
stop. Just make a
yeah.
smart decision. Peter. You're supposed to be a genius. Anyway, don't get me started on that run. It
Okay.
is the worst Spider-Man run. I defy anyone to tell me otherwise.
I haven't. Anytime I've asked, no one has had something memorable to say. Not even bad or good. It's just not memorable.
There's, I have a
Judge for
spoiler for it.
yourself.
Aunt May's haircut looks like a bell end. I'm not kidding. Yeah, spoiler alert. So which all leads us
Bollocks.
right back to Ghost Rider Wolverine Punisher in hell. That run was
Bell end
hell. So
haircuts
going back to
and
hell, this
yeah.
is that was better than Bellends. So yeah, it was. I strongly recommend it. It's good fun. It's a '90s book, and when people get really narky about the '90s, just forget it. Read this. It's utter testosterone riddled silliness, but I love it, and it's drawn by John Romita Jr.
Nice. That's why we're here.
Mm-hmm.
Why we- All right. I'm gonna do no, I'm not gonna label it this. I'll save that maybe for another episode if I want to. But I'm a fan of the character.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool that Ramita had a run on this character with a fellow artist who didn't draw it surprisingly, and that's the Mighty Thor.
I thought you might.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for Thor.
Yeah.
I love the character. I love John Romita Jr. and I also am a fan of Dan Jurgens. So this isn't the what's the word? The magnum opus of either of their careers, but I really like it
Yeah.
a lot. I love John Romita doing Cosmic because he's so known for being New York centric. Whether it's Daredevil or Spider-Man, specifically Spider-Man, right? He spends a
Mm-hmm.
lot of time with Peter Parker, but now he's still in New York drawing Thor, but then he every so often goes to Asgard or you've got some sort of cosmic event taking place throughout the book,
Yeah.
and seeing Ramita draw, you know, um, I can't remember the name now. What's the main Thor villain?
What?
That Odin uses. What's his name? Not the Executioner. I'm so mad at myself for not knowing because I love
Have a
Thor.
look in that book.
It's the main villain, the Destroyer. The Destroyer.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, because
Seeing him
it
draw.
starts with that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a little bit of one of it harkens back to that old school Thor. He occupies space with another human being, and then
Yeah.
they switch into each other, sort of thing. But you end up with Thanos. You end up with John Romita Jr. and Thor and Thanos,
Uh-huh.
and it's just a ton of fun. It's popcorn. I like this sort of thing.
I nearly picked that Thanos story.
I mean, we can focus in on it. But here's a spread page.
But that was the thing with this, because it's got this weird kind of hints of Kirby vibe about it in
Very
places.
much. Very, very much. Yes.
But when you look at it, when you look through the thing, because like a lot of it's all interconnected. So actually, like the first 25 issues are very closely connected, even though you can kind of split it quite neatly at certain bits
Yes.
into probably like comfortably four. Um, but it's all related. So like it's there's a big reveal, and then I think like after that, it kind of they switch artists, and it's almost like a jumping on point for new readers.
Yes.
But
Yes.
with still Dan Jurgens writing it. But there's some really great villains in it, and I think because like I can't remember what they are, but they've got little face gems on them or something. They're the enchanters,
I don't remember.
and
I didn't. I only read it like a year ago, perhaps a year and a bit ago, but I don't remember all of it. I know he has the Juggernaut is involved
yes,
in a storyline.
I'm
All
sure.
the usual suspects are here. So like you said, the cool thing about Romita Jr. is we'll get into it as we more knock off more off the list, but it's his ability to do his signature style
Yeah,
while paying respect to the artist who kind of made that character breathe for the first time anyway. So in this case, like you said, it's very Kirby-like,
yeah,
but all the John Romita isms that you expect to find will be there as well, while paying homage to the original sort of run that made the character soar.
yeah.
Yeah. So Mighty Thor, this omnibus I think is still available, but it's also collected in different formats, and it's from the Heroes Return.
That's
Sorry,
it. Heroes
Heroes
Return
Return
era.
era.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm a sucker for that era. I like Cap's run. I like Thor. I like Iron Man stuff. I like the Avengers stuff.
yeah,
So everything was kind of firing at very nostalgic cylinders, I guess you could say, where modern modern rock star writers, I guess, like a Kurt Busiek and you know Dan Jurgens at the time, they were doing their thing with their books, and everything was kind of at a nice place
yeah.
again for Marvel. It was back on the come up. So I'm a sucker for the Heroes Return
Heroes Return was a
era.
good period.
Yeah,
Post booby Captain America Liefeld style.
yeah, and I don't know if it was just like bringing us back to normal again. Like you just needed it to get really weird and awkward. That when things just come back, you're like, oh, thank goodness it's just
This is
back,
what
right?
you
But
thought you wanted.
yeah, yeah. No, I like that. I enjoy that time in Marvel publishing history.
Yeah,
Ramita on Thor, it's a treat.
it's great.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. Okay.
No,
Did
good
I
call,
steal
man.
another one from you?
No,
Okay.
no,
Okay,
you're
good.
all good. You're all good.
Okay.
So my next one, incidentally, just saying about covers, there's some really nice covers in that Thor run. Do you have a favorite John Romita Jr. cover? Is there one that
Um,
springs to mind?
Probably something Spider-Man related. So like we talked last week about the Spider-Man Hobgoblin first appearance 238.
Yeah,
That's a pretty cool cover. The Juggernaut covers,
yeah.
those are pretty awesome. Um, and there is another one, an X-Men iconic X-Men cover, which is just, you know,
Which one?
it's it might be something on someone's list, so I don't want to give
Oh,
it
okay.
away. Yes.
Okay, good point.
Yeah. So I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to ruin anything.
No, that's
Just yet.
cool. And because I know we've talked about it, but saying about that John Byrne run when they relaunched it, it's like the Legend Reborn or whatever it was. I should know off the
Spider-Man.
top of my head, the Spider-Man. The Romita Jr. and Senior did variant covers for the first issues of each series that were also available as prints, and they are both awesome.
I don't know. I can't picture them in my mind's eye now,
One of
but
I might share. Well, I'll pop them in here when we do the video version. But basically, one of them is Spider-Man on a wall. It's just literally just a shot of him. One's him on a wall with the symbol, like from his belt, the torch thing, glowing on him, and it just looks
cool.
cool. And there's another one of him just on a steeple in the rain.
Oh, those, yeah, classic.
Classic stuff.
Classic.
That's what you
Yeah,
have on
you
your
can't go
wall.
wrong. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Oh man, I'm in the mood to read Spider-Man now.
Well, speaking of Spider-Man, here's
Let's
another
do
little
it.
segue.
Nice.
So I'm going to dive straight into it. Basically, we're talking about Howard Mackie earlier. He jumped on Spidey during the Clone Saga, which was a
Right.
little bit on the messy side. Now, last week we were talking about how there are some nice stories during the period from when Ben Reilly was Spider-Man. This is one of them. So I've picked Spider-Man 73 to 74, and you could look at 73 and go, but you hit 74, it starts with this, the cover is so good. It's very dark. It's very Romita Jr. when he does all that dark stuff. Got Spider-Man with the Ben Reilly era costume on. Daredevil is on the cover as well. And, Jimmy Six.
One of Dave's random loves.
No, he's not. I never really understood the point. He was basically the son of a gangster. And he was this really big guy.
Okay.
Who was just a
I thought we were
gangster.
going Nazi bees again.
No more Nazi bees this week. Not yet.
Was the name Jimmy Six?
Jimmy
Six.
Six.
You said?
Yeah.
Jimmy Six.
Yeah, but
He's a good gangster name though.
It is a good gangster name. I kind of stole it and renamed a friend of mine. Oh no, that was Johnny Five. That's the robot. What did I call it? Oh, it was Jimmy the Rose.
Oh,
My
yeah,
mate's
that's
called Jimmy the Rose after Jimmy Six and the Rose.
I like it. That's good too.
He's a Spider-Man villain and doesn't know it.
That's a good name too.
Yeah, it's a cool name. He liked it. But yeah, so it's 2 issues. It's 2 issues from the Ben Reilly run. It's literally the issue before Revelations when they start trying to put Peter Parker back, or successfully put Peter Parker back, which happens in Peter Parker Spider-Man 75. So this is before the little subtle title change, Spider-Man 73 to 74. If you've heard horror stories about the Clone Saga, ignore them for 5 minutes. And it's just 2 issues, and it's a fun little gangster thing. It's Spidey up against, I think it's Don Fortunato and Hydra as well.
Wow.
With Daredevil and Romita Jr.
That's why we're here. I never read the Ben Reilly era of Spider-Man. I stopped once he becomes Spider-Man, and I never collected more after that. But I keep hearing that that's actually one of the stronger parts of that whole Clone Saga thing, is when Ben Reilly takes over as Spider-Man.
Yeah, they were doing a lot of batting about with who is and who isn't the real Spider-Man and blah, 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 blah. And then they just went, it's Ben, off we go. He's going to say, I'm not going to be Spider-Man for a bit, and then he becomes Spider-Man. And then they just basically have 11 issues in 4 titles with the odd miniseries and stuff. Some of it's great. Like this, I really loved those issues. And like I stayed, John Romita Jr. stays on the series afterwards as well when Peter Parker comes back. So there were a couple of issues either side, and I might give them a little honorary shout out if they don't get mentioned at the end of the show. But I'll do one of them now, and it was... No, I won't, just in case you say it.
Okay.
No, I'm not going to, just in case.
I think the hardest part for this particular subject is that there's a lot to pick.
There is a ton.
Before you know it. There's a ton to pick, and you don't know what to leave out, because you're like, you can't leave that out, but that's the good thing with doing 10 of them, right?
Yeah. The thing as well is like, and there are some stuff that come up and I thought you kind of should mention that, but like I don't do should. So I was just going, nope, given the choice between these 2, what do I pick? Boom, one's gone. So I was pretty strict about it. And this is weirdly are they necessarily the best written stories of all time? No. Do I love the John Romita Jr. art on them? Oh, yeah.
That's the point. Yeah, that's it.
Advertisement break.
What do we got? What do we got for him this week, Dave?
So this week, the Free Comic Book Day event is this Saturday. Mm-hmm. So if you do want to see what's coming out, you can have a look at our webpage. But yeah, there's a list of all the stuff that's coming out for kids and adults as well. They're normally color coded. If you don't normally do Free Comic Book Day, take a wander to a local comic shop. They are color coded for age. I can't tell. Thanks God. So yeah, I just have to guess.
Well, yeah, the fun thing about Free Comic Book Day, especially if there's a comic shop close by, is they usually make it an event. A good comic book shop will make it some type of an event.
Yeah.
People are coming just because it's exciting to get free stuff, first of all. And usually they put on a sale. So take advantage of it, right?
Well, Aaron Smarter, who's been following Omnibus Comics on Instagram for like years, he was actually saying that his local comic shop has burgers. I'm like, dude.
That's great. I know.
I want to go wherever that is, but it's probably in Los Angeles or something.
Well, in Toronto, or the Greater Toronto area, if you're listening and you live within this area, most people know of a shop that's just on the outskirts of Toronto called Gotham Central. That's actually what it's called. Shout out to Carlos, the owner, if he's listening. They always have a really, really great event for a free comic book day. They bring artists out. They do signings. They do sales. He's got a candy shop and a comic shop in one spot.
What?
And he's got like all the candy, all the stuff that you've only heard of, rumors. It's like, oh my goodness, I haven't seen this since.
Has he got nerds?
He's got it all. Definitely nerds.
Has he definitely got nerds?
Definitely.
I'm
Definitely
there.
got nerds. Yeah,
I love
and
nerds.
There's we are nerds.
We're nerds.
Will be
I
there.
don't want to taste those kind of nerds. No offense to any nerds out there.
Okay, I was just wondering where you're going. Yeah, he has nerds at the comic book
do you
shop.
get nerds
for
in
sure.
Canada?
Oh yeah,
You do?
I grew up on those.
Did you?
Yeah, I love those little packs. Yeah, it was great.
They do these other
mixed
ones
colors.
as well. This isn't sponsored. They do these other ones that are on like a weird chewy sweet thing. So it's covered in the little bits of nerds, and then it's like a mix of like a chewy sweet and nerds, and they're amazing. Misha got me some for Christmas. Thank you. More, please.
So we learned that Dave loves nerd bits on this segment. Anything else?
I just like to
anything
cup
else
some in my hand and then just take a mouthful.
Advertisement break.
Comics for My Kids, as it's called on the website. That's omniversecomics.guide, is an area of the site that's dedicated to people who are looking for stuff to get their kids into comics. As we mentioned previously on other episodes, I was reading stuff where people were saying, I tried to get my 6-year-old into Crisis on Infinite Earths, and they just didn't like it as much as I did. I'm like, dude, be real. So, Comics for My Kids, it breaks it down into some super characters, it breaks it down into sports and hobbies, and it takes, action, adventure, and all sorts of areas, and there's appropriate stuff for each age group. It's something we'd definitely be happy to expand if it's something that people find useful. So, jump on there, drop some stuff in the comments, let us know if you do like it, and if you want to see more. There we go.
Advertisement break.
Yes, there's the Marvel Cosmic reading order, which is one of the most requested reading orders we have, which is kind of part 1 of 2. It's Marvel's Cosmics, so they're spacefaring stories from 2003 to 2008. So it's like halfway through 2003, halfway through 2008. So it takes you through stuff like the end of Captain Marvel, the Janice Vell second run, Thanos miniseries, right the way through Annihilation Conquest, all the stuff that happens afterwards, birth of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and then it ends on the final chapter of Secret Invasion: The Infiltration, because I've included in that there are some Earthbound stories too that impact the space stuff. So in the next part, which hopefully will be coming up in the next couple of weeks, it'll start with Secret Invasion, but predominantly the space relevant stories, and go all the way to the end of Annihilator's miniseries. So it's a really good chunk. If you like your space stuff, it's perfect. So there we go.
I like my space stuff. It'll be useful for me. Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you, Mr. Dave.
It was a pleasure.
Back to our regular scheduled program. Okay. I'm gonna go with the Spidey for my number 3, and I don't know if I'm just piggybacking off of you, but it was on my list. And it's another J.M. DeMatteis story, one of my favorite writers. Love the guy. Love Romita Jr. Another Clone Saga era, The Lost Years.
Oh,
where we're following for 3 issues. I don't know when this was published. I think you would know better. But it's where it's included in the collected formats. I don't think it's during the time where it was published. But I think it fits into the narrative better where they've put it. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think it's about... So I'm showing myself up now. I think it's about 1994. So there's an issue 0, and that was originally 3 chapters in the back, like a backup feature in Amazing Spider-Man 400 and 2 other issues, basically. And then they kind of launched it as a mini-series after that.
Right.
So it's around about 1994, 95.
Right. So this is a bit of a different Spider-Man story because it's not full of costumes. from my recollection. It's a
No.
much more on the road, trying to find who you are, find yourself, find your way in the world, and filling in a big, huge gap of this major Spider-Man plot line that was told in the 70s, and this whatever happened to that character. And it tells you basically what unfolded from all of that drama behind the scenes. While Peter Parker is being Spider-Man and getting married and doing all this stuff, living his life, what happened to that brother, essentially, of him, that clone?
Mm-hmm.
Or is this really Peter? We don't know, right? As we're reading it, But again, it's the same feeling you kind of get from the Man Without Fear, the Daredevil story, where it's not about the costumes and the powers so much as it is about the character and their world.
Yeah.
And you really feel the art. This is one of those times where, weather does show up and you feel it. You really feel it in this one. Highly recommend this Spider-Man story. One, because the writer's great, and two, it's the perfect artist to tell this story. And someone who is known for drawing, some of the best Spider-Man fight scenes with Spider-Man in costume, does a lot with just this Peter Parker on a motorcycle, essentially. And I don't know if it has like there's a movie that it's sort of not cribbing, but not but that sort of feel of like a person on the road.
It does look like
Easy Rider.
Russell.
Was that?
I mean, basically, sorry, just because Reed said Ben Reilly with that crazy hair, JR Jr. drawing Constant Rainstorms, Kane being crazy, what's not to love. And that's the thing I was gonna mention the mullet, because it's a proper 90s mullet.
100%. Yeah.
Which is weird because he only just left, so it would have been the 70s at that time. So Ben Reilly was ahead of his time with that hair. But it's crazy hair, isn't it? And Kane's kind of all crazy haired and not looking like a spider person. I love Kane. I love Kane, and I don't even know why. But he's another one of those characters where it's like, what is that costume? I'm going to turn up in a ripped costume. Why? Because
I'm a sucker for the clone era. I'm not going to lie. I like it. There's a lot. It's just a lot. I think that's the problem. It's an overabundance, but within that overabundance, there's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, there's some fun bits. It's fun. There. It's not as as horrendous as people make out. Do you know what is though? That John Byrne run. Oh, dude, don't get me started on that.
I should have just done all the books that Romita Jr. did with John Byrne during that time. That was it. Just make you sit through why I love all those issues. Yeah. I don't know if there's a collected, like, single trade of just that story, but it is in all of the thicker Clone Saga.
Yeah. It's in all of those,
it's in all of those.
There was
editions.
one, but it's probably really hard to find it now, so it's probably easier to get it in the Clone Saga. They're re-releasing the Clone Saga Omnibuy later this year, so that's something to look out for.
A lot of story. A lot of Spider-Man moments. This is a highlight, huge highlight. Maybe one of the best parts for me that I've read of that time. And the Romita art is a real treat.
Yeah.
And enjoy it.
It's exactly his ballpark, isn't it?
Totally. You, sir, number 4.
Oh, number 4. I'm going for some Incredible Hulk. So
nice.
A couple of times lately, it's come up either in conversation or maybe was it a choice as well? The Bruce Jones era of Hulk. I love it. It's really underrated. People going like, oh, it was a horror. They've never done a horror with the Hulk before. Like, yeah, they have. Many times. But they leaned into it really well during that period. But before that was the Paul Jenkins run. So that was where he was trying to kind of pick on the whole Grey Hulk, multiple personality thing with various different Hulks. And I think he added in things like Devil Hulk in there. So that was new to that run. Anyway, his run essentially ends. Does it end at that point? I think it goes for a couple of issues after with this Abomination fight. So end of Peter David's run. There's a horrendous thing that happens. We find out just afterwards that the Abomination was behind it. And then you get to the relaunch, and then issues 24 and 25 of the relaunch series. Thunderbolt Ross reveals to Bruce Banner that the Abomination was involved in what happened. And seriously, as much as like during the Peter David run, the Abomination gets a little bit ruined here and there. Like at one point, one of his eyeballs is hanging out and stuff. This thing is a whole nother level. This is probably the most violent the Hulk's been in any comic before up to this point. This is the most aggressive fight. He is brutal. And it's perfect for Romita Jr. because it's going back to that bombastic style. It's big. It's lots of punching and bamming and people's faces getting all mangled. It's nasty and I love it. So it's just a really big, exciting, shameless, beefy, muscled green dudes beating the shit out of each other for this half an issue of the second part.
But that's an important feature, right? About the artist. Like Romita does a lot of heartfelt scenes. Like he can really have those moments of just people sitting on a park bench and you feel that coffee shop conversation. But he also is second to none when it comes to the actual superhero fight scenes. Like his shit is good.
I mean, weirdly in this story he does both. So there's a slight element of tragedy to this, despite all of the times the Abomination's been a just complete bastard. He actually starts to come around in this. Yeah. And then he has to face up to the worst thing he's done. So yeah, it's got both those sides to Romita Jr. and it is literally polar extremes.
Nice.
It's so good. It's so much fun. They are collecting those issues in an omnibus later this year, but it's the John Byrne Hulk run. I'm sorry. Oh no, they're not. It's not, because they're doing the Mike Carey and John Byrne run. So in theory, they might release the issues after that. Maybe give Paul Jenkins his own one, or maybe do a Paul Jenkins Bruce Jones one. I'm not sure, but fingers crossed we'll get that collected. I think you can get it in Hulk Dogs of War trade paperback, like the really chunky trade paperback. But yeah, okay. Incredible Hulk 24 and 25, the 2000 series. It's great. It's nasty and fantastic.
Cool. Very cool. I like it. I like that it's so easy to pick one character that he's worked on, and there's so many great stories.
Yeah.
Just from, like, you could just easily do Daredevil, just easily do Spider-Man, because it's so career defining. So with that, I don't know if we could, can I move on?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
Ooh, I made a fart noise with my hands.
For some people, what did you say?
I made a fart noise with my hands, and I don't know how I did it. I'm quite impressed. Nope.
I'm gonna go with an X-Men story.
Oh,
very
nice.
Obvious one. Very most people would be like, someone's got to mention it, and this is also one of the covers.
Oh, dude, I was that close.
Mutant Massacre, classic cover. If you've ever been to a comic book shop, comic book show, you've seen that comic somewhere. It's hanging. It's a sought after issue. People love it. People make t-shirts out of it. But his time on X-Men, again, in the company of a lot of heavy hitters and legends of the time, on a book that had such high expectations. And Mutant Massacre isn't a pretty story for the X-Men. It's not one where
it's harsh.
It's a harsh story. There's a lot of different moments of, like you said, the violence, those heartfelt moments, heartbreaking moments, and then just there's a consequence to this story.
Big
team
consequences,
the team's never going to be the same. This is something that they'll reference throughout the decade. So it's a good era of X-Men for me, because I like that they're going between X-Factor and X-Men, and you're really getting to see the whole world of the mutants in the mix of so many different things without a lot of. And this is a crossover, so you have some of the rest of the Marvel universe shows up, but I didn't realize how isolated the X-Men were in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it wasn't
the Marvel universe,
the big name series as such that it ended up becoming. I know they had 3 titles by that point, but yeah, it wasn't that they were appearing in every title every month. But I think that was the first X-Men crossover. And then it kind of became a thing. So then the following year they did Fall of the Mutants, X-Men themed crossover. So that was like when they were doing like one event every year. Do you remember that? When they only did one event?
One event, yeah.
Year.
And it was special. It was special. You could buy it, yeah.
Yeah, they did. So it was 3 in a row for the X-Men, pretty much. Mutant Massacre, Fall of the Mutants, Inferno.
It
So
was
that's
all event driven.
yeah, and that probably solidified how important they are.
Yeah, because and they made everyone get involved in those storylines, which sometimes ruined the other books that had to tie into it. But overall, those events were pretty. You got your money's worth. You got your story's worth. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think the thing with Mutant Massacre as well, it was like where it was. I mean, it wasn't the first because the first true one was Secret Wars 2, where the story
Right.
jumped between the books. That was done in a very different way.
Right.
There were only a handful of titles involved in Mutant Massacre, and it was just a bit of fun. And it was around the times where like Louise Simonson started writing
X Factor.
X Factor. Walt Simonson's on the art as well in there. They had a guide
Pretty-
as to how to get through the event, which was all done in like pipes as if they were in a sewer,
Yes.
which was kind of a nice touch. But yeah, it was such a great era. There's some really strong comics, and it's funny because like for an era that was still kind of beholden to the Comics Code, while the Comics Code had softened a bit and allowed certain things through in the 70s, like vampires and werewolves and all that, it's an incredibly dark comic for what is essentially meant to be kids' entertainment. You know, Mutant Massacre is it doesn't pull any punches, not really. It's a body count. It's not like
Yeah.
you look at Maximum Carnage, which took place what 9 years, 8, 9 years later, 6 years later, I don't know. But no one dies in Maximum Carnage.
I think I don't know about what was happening then. I don't even know if I was. What year did Mutant Massacre take place?
86.
Yeah, I was 2, so I had no clue of what was taking place at the time. But I feel like Maximum Carnage was strictly, we got a video game to make. Let's make a storyline out. It was something to mark it up, like Secret Wars. Whereas Mutant Massacre, I think, was very much story driven. You weren't going to make a video game out of this. Maybe they did, but I don't see how you would market something because it was violent, it was tragic, it had the superhero elements, but it was almost like, what's the resolution?
Yeah.
Oh, I just got to keep following the characters because they've all gone through something. That's all you're left with at the end. It's like that was a hard season of a television show where at the end you're just like, I'm tuning into season whatever it is because I just want to know if they're going to be okay now.
And
It's such,
you have to read to find out.
Yeah, so
It's a great
gotta
era.
shout out Romita Jr. on the X-Men. He's I kind of feel like he was of that caliber artist, like better, but of that status. All the guys who went to Image, I feel like Romita was in that sort of category of rock star artist.
Right.
He was just working on everything and doing so good at every book at the time.
He can normally do. I think he can do 2 books a month. That
Yeah,
is hype.
and he was, yeah. So
Pretty sure.
he professional, absolute professional. So
Yeah.
X-Men, Mutant Massacre specifically, it's always a pretty readily available collection in some format, and I think it will stay there because it's such a well-regarded X-Men time.
Yeah.
Go for it. Check out Romita in the 80s.
Do it. Do yourself a favor.
All right.
So this is my last. And as is
Wow.
tradition, well, it was going to be Daredevil, The Man Without Fear, but some bastard stole it. So
Yes.
I'm going to go with something that surprises
Something.
even me.
Okay. Oh boy.
So
Oh,
while
boy.
I was kind of just trying to figure out what I wanted to put on the list, I came across this one and went, "Oh my god!" Like the memories of that are wow. And again,
Okay.
I know I seem to have picked for someone that likes the kind of the really emotional, character-driven stuff. I've just picked a lot of stories with people punching each other. This is another very dramatic, very violent issue. It's Dark Reign, The List, The Punisher.
Yeah, you're gonna get violent with the Punisher.
Yeah. So basically, Norman. It's the end of Dark Reign. That Dark Reign was the period when Norman Osborn was running the Avengers. So the actual official Avengers were actually villains in disguise. I won't go into this too heavily, but just to kind of set the scene, the other Avengers were outlawed, the primary Avengers basically, And there was another team as well that kind of operated in and out of the Avengers Infinite Mansion, which we won't talk about because it's too complex. Anyway, towards the end of Dark Reign, Norman Osborn basically goes, I need to strike some things off my list, solve these problems, and that will make things easier. And one of the things he needs to cross off the list is the Punisher. So he sends Wolverine's son, Darken, it's pronounced, it turns out. I said Dakin for like years. Darken to get the Punisher off his list for him. And it is... it's a no holds barred fight, and it's a shocker. So
okay.
it's John Romita Jr. I think it rains. So you've got the rain, you've got punching people in the face, you've got people getting mangled, it's the John Romita Jr. tick box special, but it's Rick Remender as well. Remender. He's writing it. It leads into the controversial series Frankencastle. Well, it's basically the Punisher, and then it becomes Frankencastle officially, which some people got very upset about. I don't really care. I thought it was fun because comics are fun. Lighten up.
That's all.
Yeah. So, yes, Frankencastle is great. As it seems to be getting a little bit of love in the comics. In the comments as well, which is cool. But yeah, that for me is my number 5. If you haven't picked it up, do it, and then read the Frankencastle issues. I will do a proper reading order at some point as well because it's a fun era, man.
Nice. Yeah, you picked some. You picked the deep cuts. That's good,
especially with that last one.
Yeah, that's okay.
You can't really do Wolverine fingers with Darken. It's like that's what I think of you.
I'm gonna go back to the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man for my final pick. There's a lot to choose from. That's the thing with John Romita Jr. and Spider-Man. There's plenty we didn't list as far as other characters he's worked on. We could do this. We could do a part 2 to this if we wanted to because there is a lot to choose. But I'm going back to, we talked about it last week in our Spidey Bring on the Bad Guys villain.
Yeah.
Bring on the Bad Guys villains for Spidey.
Okay.
And it's during the JMS run, the Straczynski run.
Okay.
Those first 10 issues, or this collection of Spider-Man, I feel is so much fun. It's so good. It's so easy to read. There's so many special moments, really special moments for the character. But the one that I'm going to reference is issue 39. It's one of those silent issues. Do you remember that?
Yeah, because funnily enough, I was going to do that with the Hulk issue that came out at the same time because he drew them both.
Oh, okay. Cool. I didn't read the Hulk issue. So to pick up on what
losing his mind at Eric's number 5 pick.
Is it a good pick? Bad pick? Is it not?
I think that means it's a good pick.
Okay. Because it picks up off of the era that you were talking about, right? The John Byrne, Howard Mackie.
Yes, it's post that, yeah.
So things happen, from what I understand, during that series where Peter and Mary Jane are separated. They're not divorced. The marriage isn't broken up yet, but they are living apart on different coasts.
Yeah.
Peter's doing his school teacher thing, fighting within an inch of his life. The Twin Towers drop during this time. There's an actual issue in between these stories.
That's what I thought you were gonna pick.
I was going to pick that. I was thinking about that, but I went with this one instead because it's really a testament to John Romita's skills as an artist, his storytelling. No words on the page to tell you what's going on, and you're fully engaged with everything that the characters are doing, and you feel like you're there with them, like literally a fly on the wall, day in the life. So it begins with Mary Jane being alone in California and Los Angeles doing her actress modeling gig, and she's alone, like not just living alone, but she's lonely. She's living her life, and it's just the mundane things of what people do when they wake up in the morning: go to the bathroom, clean their face, get themselves ready, watch the news, glance at the TV. She's seeing her husband on another coast who she knows his secrets and she can't be there with him. Like, and the whole issue goes through her day, Aunt May's day, and Peter's day. No dialogue. No one's talking to anybody. It's just their grocery list. It's Aunt May right now has a bone to pick with J. Jonah Jameson because during this time, spoilers, but it's a pretty well-known thing. Spoilers, she figures out Peter's secret during this time. And so her feelings about the newspaper articles, she has a little bit of a different approach to how she views Spider-Man now and anyone who talks bad about him. She takes it very personal.
Right.
And then, of course, there's Peter's day, right? Day in the life of Peter being Spider-Man. And so you do get the action sequences, you know, him saving people from a burning building, no villains in it.
Right.
But
it's nice, man.
It's just the, you know, the silent issues, when someone can pull out the silent issue and make you feel what the characters are experiencing, that's the magic of comic books.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's been done a bunch of times. It's not the first time it's ever been done, but when it's done well from a master of the craft like John Romita Jr., and you can see the simplicity in his art. Like, you know why he can go fast. He's not trying to overdraw anything.
Yeah.
He's just trying to tell you the story.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's perfect because you get the hints of his father making Mary Jane pretty when she needs to be, the kind of glamorous, and then you get the kind of weird Ditko, Steve Ditko, sort of like he makes Spider-Man be a little bit more gangly and, you know, wiry when he draws him, but it's still a mix of both, and he just nails it. It's just a perfect example of a master craftsman telling comic book storytelling, and you don't even need to know how to read.
No, that's perfect. That's a canny choice, man. That's impressive.
Thank you.
Do you know what, as well, I think is what's really nice about issues like that, especially when it's by someone who really knows how to handle visual storytelling, is I think it reminds you, especially when we get a bit complacent about how we read comics, it reminds you to slow down and read the art. It's not just about reading the words. It's about reading the art. So when people go like, oh, I can read a whatever it is comic in like 6 minutes, then you're not doing it right. Go back and do it properly. Okay.
Well, I think that's a good point in the sense of a lot of times we like how artists, how their pictures look. We like their figure work. We like how they show Batman standing in poses, right? There's some artists who are really good at that pose art, but take the words away.
What have you got?
Do you know? Do you? How do you feel about the story now? Can you follow it? Does it make sense? Is it just graphically designed in a way that's like, oh, that's so cool? With Romita Jr., he finds a way to make it both work when it needs to, but there's a simplicity to like this. You just like living with the characters when you're with them.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good call.
Yeah. I think for me, he is the artist of the Marvel universe for me.
Yeah.
Like I can, if he's drawing any book in the Marvel, I'd be like, yeah, okay.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? We didn't pick, even though he's done stuff for DC, we didn't pick any of it. I felt it was, I did, it's not that I objected to his stuff at DC, but it still feels weird when he does stuff with DC. He's a Marvel guy.
I had one pick for DC.
Did you?
Yeah, I had one pick. And it isn't even like his greatest work. It's just more the fact like he ended up going to the rival company after so long, and it was a pretty big deal for comic book fans, right? It's like, oh my goodness, the Marvel guy, the guy who's basically like godfathered into Marvel history, is going to DC. This hasn't, something like that hasn't happened in forever.
Well, I think the previous one was Stan
going to DC.
He did Just Imagine, Stan Lee, which was like, it didn't seem like a permanent thing because it was a gimmick thing.
Very gimmicky. Whereas this was in storyline continuity.
Yeah, proper.
Whenever I would see Brian Michael Bendis, John Romita Jr. on Superman, I'm just like, yeah, there's something about it just makes me go, nah. You're not in the right universe, boys. And the two of you trying to pull this off, you shouldn't do it.
In theory, there's no reason why it shouldn't work. In theory.
in theory, but it just felt weird.
Yeah, yeah,
It felt bizarro like, but we're gonna talk about stuff we love.
we are. That's what we do.
Yes.
So,
Do you have alternates or should we save them for a part two? I think we could do a part two for this.
we could probably do. Oh, do you know what? I'm going to mention
Okay.
one solely because it was so close to some of the other stuff that I probably wouldn't choose it on another list. But if you think you haven't seen the Ben Reilly issues of Spider-Man with John Romita Jr.'s art, probably the most famous, if for want of a better word, one is Spider-Man 72, which was part of the Onslaught event. So that issue does appear in the Onslaught omnibus and paperback collections of that. And the front cover is incredible. The interiors are it's great. It's a Sentinel basically trying to kill him and Peter, trying to kill Ben Reilly as Spider-Man and Peter Parker as Peter Parker. And it's great. And it's probably the highlight of the Onslaught event for me. I love that issue so much. It's part of the reason why I came back to comics after a bit of a break, almost a year. And I walked into a comic shop. I wanted Hulk because I missed the Hulk, but I saw that cover and it's like, you know, I was just going to buy Hulk, and now I'm going to have to buy all these goddamn crossover issues, and that was it.
Sucker.
Did you have anything you want to share before we jump into a couple of comments?
You know what? I'll say my DC pick. It would have been his first stuff at DC. Stuff with Superman.
That's a nice cover though, dude.
Some people don't like the cover because it's like, John Romita's just being lazy. Look at the structure of his hand.
No.
He just did a shadow, and it's like, you know, he gets a lot of flack lately. He does. Doesn't bother me because I know what I'm going to be getting from his storytelling. He wasn't drawing my favorite version of Superman, but he was working with Jeff Johns, and
yeah, that's true.
It was fun. I like the kind of return to Superman was in a rough place during this time, so this was a nice little highlight, little bump in the road to just have some fun again with the character and see something new. It's like John Romita on Superman, new character, Ulysses, a little bit of a weird storyline, but I liked it. And then there's this really cool splash page where he fights Titano, like a robotic version of Titano. I don't know if you remember that.
I have read these issues, but I literally can't remember them that well.
Right here. I don't know. I just love it.
During about the time when they first decided to out Clark Kent as Superman.
It happens in a little bit after this.
Yeah.
Not too far after this. Yeah.
Which was, I think the storyline was called Truth. And then years later, Brian Michael Bendis did it in a storyline called Truth. It's like, you know you've done this before, right? And then they brought on John Romita Jr. It's like, this is weird. It's all happening again.
Yeah. I haven't read those yet.
Yeah.
We'll see if I get to them.
Don't rush.
Yeah, I'm not.
The beginning's a lot of fun.
I did enjoy his Superman title with Ivan Race. I like that.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Comments.
So a quick run through the comments. It looks like we've picked or talked about a few of Reed's favorite Spider-Man stories, including the Ben Reilly Sentinel issue, the Lost Years, the silent issue, which made him lose his mind. So we've really been we're aiming all of this episode at just one person.
Just tonight. For Reed. Yeah, that's it.
It's just
that's what we do it for. One person at a time.
One person. Also, BC Scrubs is on, and he said that the Spidey versus Morlun fight was epic. And about the silent issue, they said like it really shows why bad art can ruin a story. So while I think there is that conception that obviously with some people it works, that with just really good art you've got a great comic, which people have said to me a number of times, people that don't read comics, but yeah, bad art can ruin a story if it's not actually telling a story.
Yeah.
That's just a picture book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's, I think, the distinction with Romita Jr. He's a storyteller first.
Yeah.
Most important.
Yeah, very much so. One thing we didn't mention was the John Romita Jr. Iron Man vs. Living Laser Armor Wars 2 story, which again is some dude called Reds or something. I can't read. But funnily enough, I was going to pick that story because I remember, like, with the living laser, he uses his powers basically the lasers punch through Iron Man's armor. It's like going right through him. And the living laser looks crazy. He doesn't look like a dude with a funny mask. He looks like an actual living laser. It's great. So, yeah.
This?
That's the one. I love the cover. I love the cover 2 issues before that as well. Issue 256, one of my favourite Iron Man covers. It's him in space.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. He's a cheeky butt. Thank you so much for everyone's comments. Thanks for joining in, sharing some of your thoughts. We'll pass you back to Mr. Adam Thonai.
Don't forget, everybody, if you're watching on Twitch, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, like it. Same thing goes for Spotify, Apple, whatever podcast player you have. Rate and review the show. Subscribe. It does help. And it just gets us out to more people to listen to the podcast. It only makes things go up. And omniversecomics.guide. That's the key. If you don't have any of those other, if you're not on Twitch, if you're not on YouTube, you could always go to omniversecomics.guide, download everything there.
Yeah.
There's so much cool stuff that's going to be coming your way, everybody listening. So whether it's people on Twitch, thank you so much for tuning in. Everybody on all the other platforms. Dave, always a pleasure. Until next time, my friend.
Likewise, man. We'll see you
all right,
for
everybody.
more of this next week.
Bye-bye.
Later.